Good evening. I'd like to call to order the December 20th, 2023 meeting of the City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board. Can we please begin with a roll call?
Amanda Skyer.
Here.
James Murphy.
Here.
Dan Pickney.
Here.
David Burke. Jeff Sheldon.
Here.
Kyle Waters.
Here.
May the record reflect Kirsten Kellogg, Gabriel Dravlowski, and David Burke are not in attendance tonight.
We now move on to approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have any changes by staff?
No changes.
Okay, thank you. Any changes to the agenda from a member of the board? Okay, seeing none, we move to approve.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We now move on to approval of the minutes from the November 28th meeting. Any changes to the minutes as found in your packet? Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the November 28th meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we now move on to the report of the Historic Preservation Planner.
Good evening. Welcome. Once again, my name is Benjamin Salata. This is the first time I'm leading this meeting. I met most of you about a month ago, and some of you a little beforehand. But before I begin, I wish Dan Pickney a wonderful, happy retirement. He is resigning from this board, and this is his last meeting. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your service, Dan.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve with such dedicated and brilliant people. It's been wonderful. I'm sorry to go.
We'll miss you.
Since our last meeting, staff has reviewed 87 Level 1 permits, 0 Level 2 permits in 18 zoning. The City Commission meeting on December 11th had 4 historic preservation elements on its docket. Resolution 9329 was approved, which recalculated the historic preservation height bonuses in the Northwood Mixed Use District. We approved Florida Public Utilities Company building west from the the Palm Beach Register of Historic Places. Public hearing on the second reading of ordinance 5077-23 designating the Locust House at 12225 North Sapodilla was approved. And finally, the appeal of the Historic Preservation Board's decision on case 22-37A denying the request to replace the original wood siding and historically contributing structure located at 221 Greenwood Drive. The applicant's request was approved, overturning this board's decision on the November 28th meeting. And that is the end of my report.
So just to clarify, the City Commission overturned our decision?
Yes.
Okay, and that was, can you remind, do you remember the specifics of that case?
Madam Chair, yeah, I believe it was the clapboard siding.
Yes, Ann did the case, and I'll let her speak, please.
Yes, so it was a case at 221 Greenwood, which is in the Prospect Southland Park neighborhood. The request from the applicant was to remove the siding on the house, and when it came before you, replace with simulated stucco siding. They did come to an agreement at the Historic Preservation Board meeting to go for hardy board instead, but that's still not what we recommended at a staff level. So the City Commission did ultimately approve them replacing with hardy board.
And had they already started the work before it was permitted? Am I remembering correctly, or is that a different case?
That's a different case, I believe.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome. I wasn't here last meeting, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Fellow SCAD grad.
SCAD grad. Sorry,
Yes.
SCAD grads. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move on to remarks by the chairperson. The matters before us this evening are quasi-judicial in nature, which means we base our decisions on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. We ask you to please keep that in mind while speaking. For each project, the applicant will first have an opportunity to speak. They will be allocated 10 minutes for their presentation. If there's a demolition involved, they will have an opportunity to use up to 15 minutes. After the applicant's presentation, staff will make their presentation. Following that, we will open the matter up to public comment, if there is any, and that will be limited to 3 minutes per person. After public comment, we will go into executive session. Oh, I forgot, the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal if there is public comment. And then we will go into executive session where we will render our decision. So to lead into this, we need to let you know if we've had any conversations outside of this meeting, so we will now declare any ex parte communications.
As the matter of tonight's agenda, December 20th, I, Kyle Waters, I have not had any ex parte communications. I have not received any written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, nor have I received any expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications made part of the record.
As to all matters on the agenda this evening, I, Jeff Sheldon, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on tonight's December 20th, 2023 meeting, I, James Murphy, have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matter 23-64-297 Valencia Road, I did speak with the architect who advocated for his client and shared the floor plan of, not the floor plan, I guess the building footprint, and we had some conversations about the proposed architectural style. And we did also have some emails to set up that meeting. I've not conducted a site visit or an investigation at that site, nor received expert opinions. As to all other matters on the agenda, I did speak with city staff about those items. I have not received written communications, nor conducted investigations or site visits, or received expert opinions. As Amanda Skyer, I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to the matter of the agenda items this evening, I, Daniel Pickney, have not had any ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Okay, we now move on to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? If so, now is the time to do so. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the swearing in of our speakers. If you plan to speak as an applicant or as a member of the public, please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give at this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. You may be seated. Our first case is a continued case, and that's case number 23-64-297 Valencia Road.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm here to represent the interest of Matt and Danelle Lavin, a family that has 3 little girls that wants to build a new home for themselves in El Cid on Valencia. To start with our presentation this evening, I'd like to show design precedents, which kind of lead and phase into our design. Here we're looking at what I think is the best design precedent for our proposal this evening is 296 Barcelona Road, original main home built in 1937, but relocated to this site from Flagler. It's a full brick front with cement tile roof. You could take notice to the large windows that are on this home. They're approximately 42 inches wide by at least 96 inches tall. And you can see that in comparison with the door directly adjacent. These window sills are kind of right at the level of the patio. You can also take notice of the 6/6 muntin grid. And in this case, the brick that turns in on the window, I have a detail to the side here. What's unique here is the break in the facade, which I show on this PowerPoint slide as this dashed blue line. It's approximately 1 foot. I haven't been able to personally measure it, but I do have a roof plan or a site plan that depicts the transition between the two roofs. That occurs at that dashed line. Full-size louvered window shutters, as you can see on both stories, that do appear appropriately sized. Copper gutters that run across, whether that's original or not, I'm not sure, but it does look appropriate here. And the copper leaders that run down. And then you'll also notice a frieze board that stands right above the second-story windows, meeting with the head of the window. So what I've done in simple understanding, and I'll go through the other sides to explain, is I've selected elements A, B, C, D, E, F, and G that are kind of pieces and components that I've taken and utilized for our design. And A is this shell stone that's actually used in wonderful places throughout this home. It's used on the steps, it's used on the patio here, it's used on the privacy wall that as a cap that surrounds the property. And then we'll move to B, full-size shutters. They're louvered. C, the full window 6, in this case, it's 9/9. And E, the brick. It's kind of tumbled. Originally, this home arrived to its location here on Barcelona as a red brick home. It's since been painted. And then F, we have again the copper leaders. G, the frieze board, and then if we make our way up to the roof, D, you have the cement tile roof. And then I'll just bring your attention to this window detail. This is kind of the customary way you'd handle a brick transition to what is a wood window. Our window will have very similar appearance with a sill in finishing all of our windows. This home takes a unique frontage for the additions that were later added on. As you can see, they're smooth stucco. This is on South Olive. I'd just like to bring to your attention, you're seeing the privacy wall here with that shellstone cap. These hedges, I've measured them. They're approximately 9'6" tall. If you replicate that dimension, this wall height at the setback, which is actually closer to the setback than our design, is considerably taller as a structure along a primary road such as South Olive. And our design actually also aligns to South Olive. So I just want to bring to your attention the overall wall height here. This is approximately 24 feet. There's another view of it. The next design precedent that we've studied is 210 Sunset Road, originally built in 1938. What you're seeing is very large windows, once again, considerably large. I would say they're 4 feet wide by at least 8 feet tall. Second-story windows are, of course, smaller, but they are very large pane as well. They're single-hung windows. Bottom sash slides up. And then you see the frieze board touching the top of the head here. So I've done the same thing. I can answer what these letters indicate, but essentially those are the items that we've looked into and applied towards our design. The next slide indicates another contributing home that has a colonial revival that has step backs in its facade, but they're very subtle. At the first story, you kind of see this little alcove. What's the dimension? I would say it's approximately a foot. And you can see how the second floor cantilevers, you have full-size shutters. This, the way the break was chosen for this addition was approximately a 1-foot break to add the second story. Originally, I assumed this to be a carport. Off to the right here, that's been closed in at some point. But if you look at item B, that carport actually had a white tumbled brick also. I'd also like to bring up this project in consideration of what is a planar break on a facade with historical precedents in South Florida, specifically Palm Beach, by Marion Sims Wyeth at 174 Via del Lago in Palm Beach, built in 1934. This facade has 5 windows across the second story, and I will bring all the components here. And then you have a vertical break. At that vertical break on each side, if you follow the blue dashed line, it's approximately a 1-foot step back in the facade. You have a 2-story portion that continues beyond. And I'm just going to give you another understanding of why I put this green dashed line beyond, is to indicate where our break or our finish occurs. So when we talk about our design, this was also another exemplary indication of colonial revival and how you make a break in a facade in order to transition between, let's say, a primary facade and a secondary facade. Here is a Georgian-inspired colonial at 153 Kings Road, built relatively recently. They utilize a 1-foot step back at the front, as you can see here in this photo. Another indication of a wall break occurring that I've noticed in El Cid is at this address, 2201 South Flagler Drive, built in 1956, I believe, and renovated in 2005. On the left side, you have a setback in the primary, from the primary, which is the middle, number 2, to the secondary, number 1, of approximately 8 inches. And then to the right, unbeknownst to me whether this is original or not, but where this garage structure is, that's approximately a 14-inch step back. This is a home I'm just using for comparison and massing. I do think it leaves a lot to be desired, but I want to clearly distinguish as we go further into the presentation that our home is much different than this in comparison. This home is a continuous line. The facade is all continuous. The shutters are not consistent on all windows. There's no vertical breaks. It leaves more to be desired in terms of Mediterranean architecture without massing and voids. There's certain types of architecture that lend themselves to less voids, and that would be colonial, and specifically colonial revival, and secondarily Georgian-inspired. They stand more proud and symmetrical, but in this case, you're seeing a lot of missing elements that I think would be natural to a Mediterranean. But this home uniquely sits at a corner at Almeria and South Olive, essentially the same orientation as the home that we're designing, and I think we're doing a much better job at it in comparison. So here you're at the bottom right, you're seeing the location of the main home with the guest house. This is one of the homes that my client chose for their inspiration, which is a beautiful home and kind of has a brick banding that kind of bumps out a little bit. It's got this center primary facade with what appears to be a 12 to 14-inch step from the primary to secondary facade. It has the copper leaders. This is essentially a colonial revival home to me with Georgian inspiration, and some components that architecturally we've chosen to incorporate into our design. And then I'd just like to show this slide. I'm sure we're all familiar with the golden mean standard of 1 unit vertical for 1.618 units horizontal, being kind of what people have quoted famous architects as the perfect proportions. We'll get into further, the elevation and the colored rendering beyond is how we've dropped it to meet recommendations. But as you can see, this diagram of the golden means is that it's actually slightly taller. A slightly taller home is actually the right proportion. Rather than dropping the home or reducing its height. I'd just like to also talk quick about materials and finishes. We would be proposing a tumbled brick with flush jointing of the mortar, manufactured somewhat locally in Georgia. The Shellstone CGI Estate Series windows and doors, with exception to the front entry door, which would be a solid door by Millwork 360, making high-quality wood doors with the transom above. You're also seeing the copper half-round gutters and the round leaders and the cement tile roof that we're proposing. Okay, so in comparison to the packet you've probably been provided, this is an updated presentation, which I'm not sure you have seen yet, with respect to some modifications we've made, but I'm going to run through it and I'll illustrate kind of what's changed since the original submission, and it's minor things that you'll be able to simply understand. And to start, I'd like to show the existing property survey noting a 10.83 crown of the road height, and our proposed elevation of our finished floor will be the same as the existing elevation of the existing home finished floor at 13.05. That is consistent being approximately 2 feet higher than the crown of the road, so we would like to keep that first floor elevation in our design. The green is an overlay of our proposed home design over the existing. The existing home, if you were to consider it a new structure today, has non-conforming side setback on this side. Our structure improves upon that. The overall building footprint is in excess of the building footprint that we are proposing, currently speaking. So this is the building footprint of our design. We have 2 driveways in, the primary facade being more central and the wings at each side. I'd just like to say that we are anticipating a future design for a carport structure, and at this time it's only the primary residence and this aluminum pergola that we're proposing in our application. And here we have the streetscape elevations from South Olive and Valencia. Our floor plan depicts the primary facade running at 52 feet 8 inches, 8 inches with 11 feet on each wing with a 1 foot recess. This is kind of an indoor-outdoor living home where you get to experience your backyard wonderfully, right? You walk in, you have this kind of shared open space across the main living areas, and you get all these beautiful views to your backyard. The front elevation here is before we are making changes per the conditions. I'll allow Cheyenne to speak further about that in a moment. But here we have basically all those things. I'll just outline them again. We have full-size louvered shutters. We have larger windows. We have 6/6 muntins. We have a solid panel door with a clear-story transom above with a fabric awning. We have our vertical break where the roof actually is cut flat. You can notice this transition between the roof. That's intentional to give a better read on the transition from primary to secondary. And we have the brick band, which I'll zoom in on a little bit, which breaks at the midpoint. We have soldier courses forming at the head of the windows. We have brick sills. We have this sill that runs across that's capped in shellstone, the shellstone steps and stoop there. We have a very deep casing of also shellstone, and the door would be inset, so you'd get about a 16-inch read on the depth of that door being depressed into the facade. So keep in mind, this is a concrete block structure with brick on the exterior, so it's very thick walls. We're building 8 inches proud with this casing that wraps around this door, so you have 8 inches plus the brick plus the block that we get to allow that reveal at the entry. And then the fabric awning helps to give a little overhang of it, which complements it. Facing South Olive is this bottom elevation, which is the west elevation. You can get an understanding for this side door, the brick band running across, the fascia board, which in our current original design is a built-up frieze board with a crown, and then you can see the transition in the roof again, where it's cut flat to reduce massing and give a better read on the transition of primary to secondary. Here's our roof plan. This is our cross-section as originally proposed, and you'll get a better read on that brick and concrete block here. We have a truss floor system. This is all consistent with the City of West Palm Beach zoning regulations. And then we've produced with our team, and Dustin, the landscape architect, is also present tonight if there's any questions on site design, hardscape, or landscape. We produced a photorealistic color rendition. This is viewing northeast at the intersection of South Olive and Valencia. And what helps in our facade, and I'll just kind of give an indication of this vertical break, we have this gutter, this leader, which was this location selectively chosen to kind of segment from the main entry, which we have beautiful scrolls holding up a fabric awning, with the leader coming down, which gives that vertical break feel, but it's further exemplified by the setback, the change in the roof height, and the brick making that transition. So brick is very dimensional in nature. So I think it gives a better read on a dimensional break in this case, like we've designed. If you were to compare that with something like stucco, you don't get much of a read on it, right? The brick gives you the interest in that reveal. And this is a front view looking north at the home. The color that we're choosing is essentially going to be like an antique white. Everything would be in that color family, including the window exterior, as well as the shutters, and obviously all brick. So you'll get this coastal South Florida feel with the shellstone and the antique white, with the white roof, with the copper kind of punctuating and dressing it up. I'll allow Cheyenne to speak further on how we've made adjustments based on the conditions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cheyenne. It's my first time in front of you guys today, but I've been working behind the scenes with Russ and the firm for the past almost 3 years now, so I feel like I have been here before. We did get the staff report a few days ago that Anne has given us 3 conditions. So we were quickly able to try to address these as best as we can for today's meeting. So the first condition was the 2 wings of the structure shall be recessed a further 2 feet in order to I can't read my font, sorry, in order to make that difference larger. So we believe at this time that the 1 foot difference is enough to give a good reveal and to make the 2 wings secondary to the primary facade and give a nice relief to a flat wall. And as you heard earlier on, Russ found some good design precedents that show a 1 foot break that we think is appropriate and works with the colonial style. And the second condition is that the structure shall be lowered an additional 2 feet. So as you see, this elevation in front of you is one where we were able to drop the mean roof height by 2'6". So by doing that, we decreased the floor framing in between the first floor ceiling and the second finished floor to go from the original 2 foot proposal to 14 inches using dimensional lumber. We decreased the ceiling heights on each floor a little bit So the original proposal was 11.6 first floor and 10-foot second floor, and it's now 11.4 and 9.3. And then we increased the roof overhang, elongating the eaves, and slightly raising the slope to allow the eaves to fall lower at a lower roof eave height of 22.6 now. So overall, we were able to decrease it to 2'6", meeting the condition. We feel like it's still an appropriate design. However, we do lose the soldier courses at the second floor windows due to this, which we felt did add character. And like Russ originally spoke about, is we felt that our taller facade actually held the proportions of a colonial Georgian-inspired home a little bit better. And the last condition is that there should be no more than 2 10-foot curb cuts. We understood the zoning code that where the driveway meets the sidewalk, that is where it's restricted to 10 feet. So that is what we complied to. And then we followed the City of West Palm Beach engineering services for the apron cuts. And we also have Dustin here, the landscape architect who helped with the hardscape and site planning. If you have any additional questions on that, he may be able to give some additional information. And I think that concludes our presentation for today, and we're open to some questions.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
You're objecting to that first condition. In your 2 renderings, you had trees kind of screening the wings in order to, I don't know, to concentrate on the main building, but I don't know. It doesn't give a true view of what the building would actually look like. What I'm saying is that I agree with the staff recommendation of pushing them further back.
I understand it. And my intention today in going back to the PowerPoint slides is that I've found multiple precedents in LCID that show a 1-foot step back in the facade as being sufficient, but more specifically for a colonial home or even a later Regency, 1 foot is a commonly accepted break, in my opinion, architecturally, but nonetheless in LCID, as evidenced by the architecture that I've presented, previously built, historically speaking. But then furthermore, even, and I know most members on the board would agree that Wyeth is a prime example of doing colonial revival structures in Southeast Florida, and specifically that home was of reference with the break, with the same continuity of massing, with the same 2-story, with kind of the same wall height, the same roof type. So it led me to believe that we were designing appropriately within context of the neighborhood and at large colonial revival.
One other thing, please. Just out of curiosity, were the cloth awnings over the entrances one of our recommendations, or was that your choice? And is that consistent with this type of design?
That's a great question. I just want to go back to a design precedent we have here with the cloth awning that may or may not have been approved by this board. I'm not certain, but here it is on 210 Sunset Road. We wanted to gain, it'd be a 3-foot or 3'6" awning, but what we wanted to do is gain some cover. Colonial architecture to me is very proud. It doesn't really even need to be on the home particularly, but I thought it gave a better read on the facade depth-wise. And then I felt like a brick facade seems very, impervious to me, right? So then the fabric kind of plays that delicate balance of bringing back some other texture to it. So that was our choice. I'm sorry, to answer your question, it wasn't recommended, it was our choice.
Yeah. No, I just thought even that homes of this, elegant homes like this of a grand scale would want something more than a no-cloth awning. I mean, but if that's your choice.
Yeah, and that's our choice.
And
at
the
dir-
applicant's choice.
Our client's interest, of course, we're representing here tonight as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The two curb cuts along Valencia, maybe this more towards Dustin. Will you be able to make those cuts and maintain the existing trees in the swale?
Yes, Mr. Murphy, that's our intention.
And then the curb cut that's closest to, what is that, Olive, is that utilizing the existing curb cut, or is that moving it closer inward to the site?
I believe it moved. Did it move slightly? Yeah, it was a slight modification.
And currently, there's no garage proposed, or at least not in our set. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yet you're also proposing a curb cut along South Olive.
That is part of this application.
No,
No?
not at this time. South Olive, we are not proposing a curb cut. I did want you guys to see the full picture of what our goal is later on, and I think that's with reference to your question, James. Over here is where the future proposed carport would be. We have been notified by Ann that you can't have 3 curb cuts on a property. We thought it was a maximum of 2 on each street. But we, of course, will comply with engineering's requirements or limitations thereof with quantity of curb cuts on a property. If there's some future modification to the application where the carport needs a secondary curb cut in the future, once we apply for such, the driveway might change its shape to only have 1 cut in the center and just be a larger cut at that point. But that's not a part of our application at the moment, so no, we don't show a 3rd curb cut here. And these double lines here are this speed bump that's in the road, just for reference.
Yeah. I just don't think that any of these properties along Valencia have the double curb cuts for properties that are similarly sized in terms of lot width. So I think that's slightly out of character, among other things. But thanks for answering my questions.
No problem.
Any further questions? Checking my notes. I forgot a notepad. I'm not on my phone. I'm taking notes on my phone. I guess I am on my phone, but I'm not doing anything other than that. I just wanted to address some of the precedent images that you utilize, and I did want to note that 296 Barcelona is a poster child for why the city adopted size, scale, and mass regulations for its historic districts. That was Nancy and Bob Honchar built that addition, and they did that on one other house, I think on Olive. There are maybe 2 or 3 in the neighborhood, and really maxed them out. And so I understand architecturally speaking from the style perspective, it's a good reference point, but as far as how that building meets the street, I think there's a lot to be desired in terms of keeping the character of the neighborhood. I did want to ask a question though about, you were saying there's a 1-foot step in the facade. Are you talking about from the front porch or from like the wings further back? Because if you look at an aerial of it, it looks like the porch is significantly further back, maybe 8 to 10 feet from that facade.
Yeah, I think your understanding is accurate. I'm talking about the primary facade. This board and the City of West Palm Beach zoning standards don't indicate the porch as being a primary facade.
Okay.
So the facade is the facade of the building itself, and taking cues from this design, 1 foot from the primary step back to the secondary is what we found to be applicable.
And I know when we spoke, we talked about a portico feature, and so at what point did you decide not to go in that direction and why?
Good question. So We thought it was better to create more of a setback at the front. If we go to the plot plan, in comparison to what I presented and what we discussed previously, we actually increased the setback by 18 inches. I just felt like it started to come forward or encroach upon. Not that I'm totally against it, but the client actually prefers it to be more minimal and simple as a colonial revival in nature, and by that, even simple to the point where a portico would, to him, be and her be unnecessary. At my recommendation, I recommended a fabric awning to come out and at least provide some form of projection. And, you know, if anything, it gives you a further read from the front setback to answer your question.
Okay. Well, I think going back to your precedent images, 296 Barcelona and the one on Via del Lago that you referenced, I think that's a critical feature in breaking up the massing, to have that portico, more of a important entrance that I think draws your attention away from the long run of building that's being proposed. And the other thing I just wanted to point out is, because I pointed you in the direction of Wyeth's work, architectural style-wise, I do think that it's important to keep in mind the size of this lot is only 100 feet by 125 feet, and those properties that you're comparing it to in Palm Beach are in the estate section and probably are multiple acres.
Very large lots.
Yes.
But this home is ginormous. I mean, I kind of put these green lines to show what would be ours in stopping the finish of the exterior on those wings. But this home leads much further back, much wider than I'm trying to use. So I'm just trying to take a snippet of it for our comparison.
Okay. Let me see if I have any other questions.
Just a question on this one. There's a lot that is very palatable with this. The question is, now hearing the clients looking for more of a minimalistic approach to the entryway, I'm having a hard time digesting just the entryway lights. You know, perhaps that could be more of an impact, you know, as a sort of an entryway, maybe lights as a feature. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to speak with the client about, you know, the idea of a portico or more prominent entry, and to find his position and her position on that before I can make a further response there.
And can you clarify, because we don't have the revised drawings that you showed to meet the conditions of staff, what is the floor to ceiling height on the first and second floor?
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we have 11'4" on the first floor and 9'3" on the second floor.
Okay. And then, so the height overall came down from?
2'6" mean roof height. That's how we determine height in this zone, is from the mean roof height. So by sloping the roof, creating a further overhang, and dropping the whole roof down, what you end up with is essentially very similar to what's in El Cid, is the fascia, the frieze board meeting with the top of the window. You can probably see it better on this one, at the second story. So whereas previously it had a much larger spacing between the head height of the window and the eave, where we were able to incorporate soldier courses, and then a double built-up frieze board with a crown leading to the eave. But I could still say with confidence, this is very consistent with every design precedent I've shown, mentioning earlier that the frieze board touches the top of the window heads at the second story in every case that I've investigated for colonial revival.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-64 for demolition and new construction at 297 Valencia Road. The applicant has done a pretty good job of going over design precedents and the proposed design, so I'll be brief. This is a corner lot on South Olive and Valencia. It's currently a non-contributing structure built in 1955, as you can see here. And here are some photos of the neighboring property next door at 287 Valencia. The applicant is requesting demolition of the existing non-contributing structure of approximately 2,611 square feet and construction of a new two-story single-family residence of approximately 4,929 square feet. This also includes a proposed pool, aluminum pergola structure, and site walls. Here's the site plan as the applicant was just showing. As indicated, there are 2 curb cuts along Valencia and 1 on South Olive, which will be addressed with one of the conditions. This is the roof plan. The first floor plan showing that 1-foot break in between the 2 wings and the primary facade. The second floor plan and the front elevation prior to the applicant making adjustments. Side elevations and the rear. As you can see in the streetscape, it is a bit taller than the house next door, which is why the condition was added to lower the height by a bit. Here are the renderings and the more updated renderings provided by the applicant today. We believe that the demolition of the non-contributing structure will not represent an irreparable loss to the El Cid Historic District or to the city as a whole. We believe that it also meets most criteria for new construction, including standards 9 and 10, and are recommending approval with 3 conditions: that the 2 wings of the structure shall be recessed a further 2 feet in order to differentiate them from the main facade and breaking up the massing of the structure. The structure shall be lowered an additional 2 feet to better comply with the massing of the surrounding structures, and that the site shall feature no more than 2 10-foot curb cuts on either street frontage, South Olive or Valencia, in order to comply with zoning regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
Yes, yeah, thank you. This is listed as a continued item on our agenda. Was this, when was this presented to this board before?
So it was not heard last month. We had scheduled it for the agenda, advertised, sent out mailers, but then the applicant requested to be heard this month instead. So we had to put it on continued items, even though it was never heard.
So this is the first time they're presenting to this
This is the
commission?
first hearing, yes.
And so they've been given no prior design direction by this board?
Correct.
Great.
Since that first condition seems to be a point of contention, how would you address that? How would we rectify that?
I mean, I think it's at the board's discretion, whether the condition is applied, what the exact recess amount would be. Obviously, my opinion is really 3 feet. An additional 2 feet on what they've already proposed would be more appropriate, but if the board feels that 18 inches or a foot or no further recess, any of that is an appropriate condition.
Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Do you think the height reduction that you saw today was sufficient to address your concerns?
I think it starts to. I think it's unfortunate that we are losing the detailing above the windows on the second floor. I think I probably would have liked to see maybe the first floor height reduced a little bit more as another option. But it is going above and beyond what was requested in the condition, on the other hand.
So remind me, they did more than 2 feet, or what?
I believe he said 2'6".
2'6", okay. Okay. And is the pitch of that roof, is that a typical pitch that you see in the neighborhood? Because one of the things that I'm recognizing is, like, I compared 2 projects on Flagler that we recently approved that are under construction right now between, I think it's Sunset and Valencia. and one of them has a hip roof with a very steep pitch, and because of that, overpowers the building to the south with a gable roof. And then the other new construction, because of the way they've broken up the massing, yes, it's a much larger site, but they've also varied the roof types. It doesn't have that same imposing sense when you're walking by or even driving by.
I would just say, you know, hard to define, but this does, to me, read more on the more imposing end of the scale, certainly.
Okay. How would you suggest that could potentially?
I think what they've done in terms of lowering it is sufficient in their presentation today for my purposes.
Okay. Would you recommend a change in the pitch?
Perhaps.
Okay.
I would probably need to see what it actually ends up looking like.
Okay.
It's hard to say conjecturally, I guess.
Yes. Any further questions of staff? Thank you. I have 2 public comment cards. Catherine Strickler.
Hi, I'm Catherine Strickler. I live at 310 Valencia, so 3 houses to the west and across the street. I've seen the drawings, and I think that this coastal colonial home with the full brick and the cement tile roof is lovely, and it's very fitting within the neighborhood. There are 2 new homes right across the street from me that are very large, and so I think that this home is very suitable and appropriate for our street, and specifically fitting for a corner lot on Valencia. I'm not bothered by the massing at all, and I think that Dr. Russell Royciki and his team and the owners have done a great job. So, thank you.
Thank you. Brian Lavin.
I'm Brian Lavin. I live at 294 Cordova. I come here not as an unbiased person. This is my son and daughter-in-law. This is our third family member that lives in the neighborhood. Fortunately, we all live on different streets, one on Granada, one on Cordova, and one on Valencia. I know my son and daughter-in-law view this as their future primary residence, and they're very enthusiastic about it. I think that I'll let them work out all the design details with you and your staff, but I know this is a very important move for them, and we welcome your all's consideration and thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? I only had 2 cards. Would you like a rebuttal? I don't know if there's anything you need to respond to. Okay. We'll now go into executive session.
Okay. Well, I think that there's certainly very elegant aspects of the design. One of the things that I find find challenging with the design, in particularly with the immediate area, is the coterminous first and second floor massing, and the other houses on that street have more of a break, distinguishing the second floor from the first floor with the 1-story portion. And that context, coupled with the building being at the minimum setbacks and the second floor having the same spatial arrangement as the first floor at basically the minimum front setback, I find out of character. And I'm trying to kind of balance the very nice design that's been presented with the immediate area. and I'm struggling with some of the new construction compatibility standards.
Anyone else want to comment?
I was going to say that my comments about the recessing the wings were more observational than anything else, and even though it's not possible, I wish our two architects were here to add their opinions to it as well. So.
Well, I think using the term wings, you hit right on it. I think that's generous to call them wings with a 1-foot setback. It's a break in plane. Mm-hmm. And I do agree with staff's recommendation that it be set back 3 feet. I think there could be something to further break up the massing with a front entry feature, whatever that may be. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, in the precedent images that were provided, that certainly seems to be, whether it's a cantilevered second floor balcony or some sort of portico, I think that's important when you have a building in this style and specifically with this length. I think that speaks to the size, scale, and bulk, and I agree. So much of what we're seeing, I think, in a lot of new construction we're completely losing the one-story element. And that's so key, I think, to a lot. And in the rhythm of the street, right? The change in roof lines as you go down the street. And I do think that perhaps there is room to bring the height down even further, maybe another 2 feet. I'd like to maybe see what that looks like, given the new ceiling heights. I think you could still have 10 feet on the first floor and 9 feet on the second floor. Perhaps there's other places where that height can be taken out of, but I would like to have more information with the streetscape, because I think the revised plan that we're shown only showed one building next to it, and the one immediate to the east. I'd also be interested to see the olive streetscape. Like, what is that? I don't know what that building, it's a 1-story building. So I think that would be interesting to have that additional information to assess.
Yeah, I think your comments are significant enough that it might warrant a continuance. I mean, you know, this property was put in the continuing business, but it wasn't really. It was just postponed, actually, because we didn't get a chance to comment on it, right? So this will be its first continuance.
One comment that I do have, it looks like we're circling around perhaps a continuance. I think it's time to also perhaps address the additional cuts for the driveways. You know, if there's going to be a comprehensive plan for future expansion, perhaps if there is a continuance, that could be a great time to evaluate what that looks like, and we can have one solid, you know, perhaps even save the homeowner that time and headache down the road too. So perhaps that could be a way to go.
I think that's a good point, because I think, as Mr. Murphy noted earlier, that for that street, there aren't 2 curb cuts along Valencia. So perhaps you might consider coming next month with a, I guess, parking plan for along Valencia that only has 1 curb cut, so we can look at that in comparison, especially if there's a plan for future access off of Olive. Any further feedback? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to continue?
I'll make the motion. It's a 1-month continuance to the date certain. I'm sorry, what is that date? January 23rd, 2024. with the design direction provided at this hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Our next case is case number 23-68, 1716 Lake Avenue.
Good evening. My name is David Mahoney with Yates Associates Architecture on behalf of Patrick Lafferty and his family for 1716 Lake Avenue in West Palm Beach, which is in the Grandview Heights neighborhood. Just right on the, it's like one of the first streets in Grandview Heights adjacent to Flamingo Park. This is the overall aerial. The little push pin is the location right on the corner of Lake and Park. I keep losing that one. So we have a vacant lot. It's a very tight lot. We're at about 3,280 square feet. It's probably the smallest lot I've ever worked with. And it has its own challenges. Currently, it's an overvegetated lot surrounded by a chain link fence. I was told that it was a home at one time, and it had previously been demolished, and part of this property right here to the right. It has since been sold to my client to develop a new home, and across the street is the side view of 1800 Lake. This is the survey of the property, which the chain link fence currently runs along this property, or this property line, and then a 45-degree angle cutting off most of the corner. We plan to put a brand new home on this within the parameters given to us as part of the zoning regulations. So this is the property. The siting currently is, we're taking advantage of the 2 minimum setbacks on this, which is a total of 15 feet combined. We decided to hold the house to the 10-foot line on the west side of the property because of the access point to the property. There is currently a parking island and some signage here that prevents us from, there is a curb cut here that shows up, but based on the design of the home and what we were looking to achieve, we decided to orient the house facing lake with the approach to the property coming on the east side of the property. We did receive a report from Ann regarding the driveway, which we are okay with. No problem there. We will address that. But currently it's showing parking for 2 cars up against the lot line. I understand that that's not allowed following the staff report, so we have to be 3 feet from that. And we intend to change that from a grass jointed concrete block paver type parking area to parking strips, which will help us with our front yard vegetation requirements as well. This is a quick overview of the floor plans. We are going for more of a Art Deco approach to the style of this home, which I'll get into more as we get through the elevations and renderings that we have provided. It's a very simple floor plan, open concept in the back with the great room, kitchen, and dining all combined as one big community area for the home. We have a guest bedroom or an optional study for the home for Mr. Lafferty, with 2 bedrooms upstairs with ensuite baths, and then terraces on the on the front and back of the home, both having views of the park and the neighborhood as well. This is a zoomed in enlarged floor plan because I know that was probably a little bit smaller. Just turned in context for the shape of the lot. We would be approaching towards the top of the plan. There's a cantilevered balcony on the 2nd floor as part of the terrace system that provides coverage for the front door. Gives it an element seen a lot on Art Deco homes during our research and driving around the neighborhood. Again, that terrace comes off of this bedroom too. You have a nice area to sit and look at sunsets in the park if you wanted to. I know there's a lot of vegetation over there, but at least get outside of the home because of the constraints of the property, we didn't have a lot of opportunity to create ground floor covered spaces. So we gave much attention to getting outside to the second floor areas. Again, you can see over the streets, over into the park, and it just provides a nice exterior area to gather. This is, roof plan, simple flat roof system with parapets and roof drains. This is the street elevations in context. We have a couple one-story homes immediately to the east of the project with two-story homes following that in succession. And I have street view pictures of the homes as well. Across the street is 1800 Lake, which is this home here, and then another one-story. And I think the next one to the east starts to become a two-story structure as well. This is some of the neighborhood in context. This is immediately to the east at 743 Park, and then heading down towards the east, some of the character of the neighborhood immediately on the street of where we are proposing this home. This is across the street. Some of the context for the neighborhood, not exactly Art Deco, but there are some elements sprinkled in through the neighborhood as well as the Armory Arts District, Armory Arts Center, where we drew some of our inspiration from, as well as Park Slope Townhouses, which is on Lake in the same neighborhood. We tried to grab as many elements without, stealing ideas and things like that. We just wanted to get the feel of Art Deco, the styling, the colors, even though it may seem subtle. This is some of the context a few streets over, sprinkled in throughout the neighborhood. One of them got doubled up on accident, but that's, as you can see, once I get into the elevations, you'll see some of the inspiration that led to our final design solution for this home. With that being said, this is the front elevation of the home. This is the front foyer area. The parking stripes would be in this area. We have horizontal railings. We're looking at doing kind of like a brushed aluminum finish on the windows to really, kind of dig into that Art Deco feel. It's going to, we did, as part of the conditions of staff, which I'm sure she'll go over, clear glass. So this is just showing tinted for now, just to show the difference in the materials on our black and white elevations. Some of the articulation of the side elevations, this elevation here, the west elevation faces the park. We tried to break up and not make it as boxy, so those terraces also help us to kind of break up the massing of this home as much as we can on such a tight property without, limiting square footage as much as possible. Some of the color profiles we're looking at, it may not come through as clear. There's some blue accents, maybe even like a teal, soft, like a seafoam, like even a greenish color in the relief striping, which is a recess in the stucco. We have rounded eyebrows over key locations on the house. One of them being a cantilevered balcony to provide protection over the rear door, but also you break up that boxiness of what you can start to get in an Art Deco home. This is the this is the eastern elevation, which faces the neighbor. We tried to create a private balcony back here in this corner for the master bedroom. This balcony on the front is more exposed to the street, but it gives that breaking up the massing as much as we can. We provided horizontal banding. This mouse keeps sliding around. Horizontal banding and that protrudes from the side of the house, only about 2 inches, and then the recesses are about 1 inch, enough to give it a break in the planes and align with some of the division of the windows, which will be more evident in the renderings. This is the elevation facing the park. Getting into the renderings, this shows some of the landscaping ideas that we will likely be approaching. Again, as far as the staff report that we received, this driveway will not be the final driveway solution that we'll be going with because of green area requirements and the setback requirements that we have to adhere to. So this is the southeastern corner. This is on the corner of Lake and Park, right as you come to the stop sign. And this would be the view from the park area. Now, granted, depending on how the landscaping, the final landscaping solution comes about, it'll, you may not see much of the ground floor based on any hedges or things like that that end up in the project. For the rear yard, we are going to propose a pool in the back areas. It may not be as large as that because of the constraints of the property, but we can dream, and we're going to provide a pool as long as one will fit in there and we can still maintain some of the green areas that are required. As far as some of the materials we're looking at, it's going to be a horizontal metal railing, likely stainless steel or even a brushed aluminum in color or finish. Brushed aluminum finished windows, and then this is some of the window treatments on the Armory Arts that we were trying to, we didn't do the breaking up 4-panel type division of the windows, but some of the other precedents that we were looking at was some homes not in the immediate area. One of the homes I think in this slide is in Australia, but we were drawing inspiration from different aspects of Art Deco that we could achieve, and then we're going with a simple construction method on this again because it's such a tight property. So keeping it simple, as simple as possible. I believe that was it that I have for now.
I might have missed it in your presentation, but the horizontal lines on the building on the second floor, are those grooves or are they painted on?
They're grooves.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a dimensional. It's not just a painted stripe.
Hi, how are you? My name is Patrick. One thing I noticed is on this screen, I don't know how it's showing up on yours, but it's actually making the image a little taller than it, like the proportions are off, the dimension. So on the normal image, it looks a little wider. That's all I wanted to know. It's just on here, it looks, the proportions look off where it's a little taller than how it sets on the actual renderings that we have and how the actual architecturals are.
Yeah, and I do have the rendering on my iPad if it does help, because it does squish it together quite a bit. If that helps at all, if you needed to see it.
We also have a packet that we're
so-
referring to on laptops
Okay, yeah.
in addition to your presentation.
Perfect. I didn't know what you were saying.
Yes. Questions of the applicant?
Could I see the front elevation again, please?
Do you want the rendering or the flat elevation?
The rendering. Now, I just wanted to see again, I always thought of those curved sections like that as a nautical motif, but you've shown it in other parts of the area, so.
Well, I have to say, I think it's an extremely cute, charming residential solution that you've come up with on a challenging site. I will direct my question about the style's appropriateness to staff. But anyone that knows my resume knows that I'm obviously a huge fan of Art Deco architecture, and could easily see this in Flamingo Park in Miami Beach. I think you did a lot of things very, very well. And my only design criticism at this point would be the forehead of your second floor seems to be a little off. I don't know if it's your colleague's proportion or just maybe you might want to adjust that. Even looking at the ceiling heights and your explanation of the parapet, there still seems to be some overreach on the height of that parapet / ceiling / not really sure what it is, that could probably benefit from being taken down to really emphasize the horizontality. But generally, a very good job, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. I agree with you. I think it is a little exaggerated in the rendering, because I think the parapet height, I believe, is only 20 inches. So it could be, yeah, I mean, we're only showing 16-inch on that edge, but and the ceiling heights, just to finish off that point, I'm at 9'4" on the ground floor and the second floor, which puts the windows at 8. So I do agree with you. That can be adjusted.
Any further questions? So we typically don't have purview over interiors, but obviously the floor plan can influence how the exterior is expressed. And so I wanted to ask if you have looked at any other iterations of the primary facade, specifically in the area where the glass block window is located.
We have. Patrick and I had gone back and forth with a couple different iterations of the front elevation and configuration of that bathroom to make it work. And one of staff's recommendations is to adjust the glass block if it were to stay. But if it were a adjustment to the fenestration, that's something we can look at. We have already, but yeah, we can, no problem if you need us to look at that.
Well, I think if you think about the hierarchy of like the primary facade of the building, typically there wouldn't be a bathroom given such prominence. And so I was thinking, just looking at the floor plan, and even from a construction perspective, would it make sense to flip the bathroom and the bedroom so that you're connecting to plumbing on the same wall? And then you also would have the opportunity, I think, to change the fenestration on the primary facade, which I think is needed. I don't know if everybody's in agreement, but I don't know. I feel like I look around, I'm looking at the whole thing, and it just feels like there's something else that's needed to kind of balance everything else happening with the building.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go there, but, you know, as you're fumbling for your keys to enter the foyer, you could see if a vague silhouette of someone on the loo. I mean,
that's a fair point.
Hence the vague, you know, and you almost want to be like, well, if you're going to be playful, be really playful and have the glass block continue along into the shower. It's a really good design suggestion about the flipping of the interior spaces.
Yeah, I don't see that. That is something that I can talk to Patrick about, and we can explore. Because, yeah, as far as ease of construction, putting plumbing adjacent to plumbing helps. I think in my approach when I was looking at it is that's our only spot for in this design solution. That's where we ended up with the stackable for the laundry room, and it was kind of a central location if you're coming down with laundry and everything, kind of land in one spot. But I agree, it can be, there's a million solutions to everything, so.
And I also just wanted to bring your attention, as soon as I saw this, I immediately thought of 2111 South Flagler Drive. It's a different neighborhood, but specifically the way that you've curved the foyer, it made me think of that, and so you might look at that for some design detail. I think you could strip it down even further. I don't know, some of the... if you look at that property, it's much more streamlined, modern, and I think that's what James perhaps was getting to with the parapet. I think if that was just one set of banding rather than 3, or, you know, that would help a lot to just simplify and clean up the lines of the building.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments?
Reducing some of the banding and bringing that overall height down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-68 for new construction at 1716 Lake Avenue. This is in the Grandview Heights Historic District, although it does border Flamingo Park as it's on Park Place. It is located across from the Armory Arts Center, and this is the existing site, which is currently vacant. It was occupied by a building, but it was demolished in, I believe, 2002, and we don't have any photos of what was originally on the site. As you can see here, the neighboring buildings on Lake are the Arts Center, which is a fairly similar architectural style, and then 1704 Lake to the rear, which is a much smaller one-story building. The request is for proposed new construction of a two-story single-family home of approximately 1,697 square feet in an Art Deco style. This is the proposed site plan. As you heard, one of the conditions is that parking layout will need to be reconfigured because it does show that paving is going up to the property line. This is the proposed floor plan, both ground floor and second floor. The proposed roof plan, it is a flat roof, and front and rear elevations with that glass block that was being discussed. It does also call out glass in a blue hue, which will need to be revised to meet historic guidelines. These are the side elevations and the streetscape, showing that although it does have one-story neighbors, there are a few two-story in similar massing further down Park Place. Here are the renderings of the home and a few examples of similar contributing structures in the Grandview Heights Historic District. As previously mentioned, there's also another great example on Flagler. I didn't include that because it's not directly in this historic district, but there has been some other new construction in the area, such as the Park Slope townhomes that were also in this architectural style. We believe that this does meet all review criteria, including standards 9 and 10. And are recommending approval with these three conditions. All windows shall feature clear glass rather than the blue glass specified in the plans in order to comply with historic regulations. The front driveway shall be revised to meet minimum side setback and landscape requirements while still providing the required 2 parking spaces. Recommendation would be to do this with tire strips, but if the applicant has another scheme, I think that's also acceptable. And then third, the glass block on the front elevation shall be shifted to better align with the double doors above. Or if another scheme was proposed where it was made larger or replaced with another form of fenestration, that would also be acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Do you have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
I kind of think it's a good massing, good architectural solution. I'm satisfied with the style selected as expanded upon by staff. I would just add a 4th condition about the simplifying the parapet and all of those extraneous lines above the 2nd floor ceiling, and an exploration of the front ground floor fenestration treatment for that area that's identified as a bathroom.
So you're okay with approving with conditions? Okay. Any further discussion?
I just want to see how it's going to lay on out. It's one of the smallest lots that we've seen. As said before, it's under 4,000 square feet. It's going to be a tricky project. It's an undertaking. I'm just curious to see how it's going to turn out. As of right now, I can't poke too many holes into that, but just a comment.
So you're saying once it's under construction and completed, not you need additional information to make a decision?
We have it here. The setbacks are in compliance, and it's hit everything that they've set forth. So I don't have any.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Murphy?
I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number 2368. Did I jot that down right?
Yes, that's right.
For new construction, in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 9449 of the city zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach, Secretariat of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10. The additional compatibility criteria set forth in 9449 of the city zoning and land development regulations. The conditions include the following. Number one, all windows shall feature clear glass. Do I need to read all of them into the record? Shall feature clear glass rather than the blue glass specified in the plans in order to comply with historic regulations. Number two, the front driveway shall be revised to meet minimum side setback 3 feet and landscape regulations while still providing the required on-site 2 parking spaces. Number three, the glass block on the front elevation shall be shifted to align better with the double doors above. I'll expand on that. Or similarly, the applicant shall provide a revised ground floor fenestration based on design direction by this commission and as determined appropriate by staff. And for the architect shall revise the parapet and horizontal element striping above to simplify design and lower the overall parapet height as determined by staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Your project is approved. Thank you.
In the future, you guys can always just refer to the conditions in the staff report if you don't
Okay.
want to read them. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Our next case is 23-67, 317 Grayman.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Gangler. I'm the architect for 317 Grayman, and I have the owner here, Gus Rennie. You want to say a couple words before I get started?
Sure.
Gus lives just one street over. He and I have done a couple of renovation projects in the neighborhood. It's just a broad push to help reclaim or rehabilitate some of these older properties that are in, I would say, dire need, especially the case of this one.
So, like I said, my name is Gus Rennie. I live in the neighborhood now at 218 Edgewood Drive, which was a build and a saving of an older home. I also did 130 Greenwood Drive. I did 321 Grayman Drive, 2 houses away from this structure as well. And I was involved in 225 Monroe as well. I happen to love the neighborhood. My wife and daughter love the neighborhood. We like to save and preserve the historic value of these homes. Prior to Ms. Hamilton, I worked with Ms. Mittner pretty closely on getting what she would like done before it got here so that we wouldn't have to go back and forth too much. Saved a lot of good stuff like barn doors and wood windows and things like that to my expense, but preserved what was there. And that's all we're looking to do, is just preserve the neighborhood, give people what they want, and provide a nice new home instead of something that's run down and vacant.
Okay, before I begin, congratulations, Mr. Pickney, on retirement. Thank you for your service. Okay, in keeping with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, we believe our proposed design maintains the historic purpose as a single-family, 2-story home with minimal changes defining the characteristics of the building and its environment. Since we are not making changes to the main house facade, the historic character of the property is retained and preserved. There are no changes proposed that would create a false sense of historical development, such as conjectural features or adding architectural elements from other buildings. We are also maintaining and preserving the changes to the facade that had happened over time, such as the enclosing of the front porch in 1984. Distinctive features such as the chimney and window surround details we are also preserving in the design, and we propose to repair rather than replace the existing wood framing in the structure and any historic features such as the chimney that have been deteriorated. Only where the severity of deterioration requires replacement, we will do so in a manner that matches the historical example. In our proposed design, the new addition is differentiated from the old and is compatible with the massing and scale and size and the architectural features of the historic home. Additionally, our design for the new addition matches the historic home in height, character, style, proportions of openings, and the rhythm of solids and voids. And proposed design also retains the rhythm of the street and the relationship of the buildings to the open space around them. In our proposed design, we use the same materials and finishes that are typical of the Mediterranean or mission style of architecture and of the historic district in general, such as the textured stucco, red clay brick pavers, pan and cap barrel tile roof, and the Pecky cypress. Lastly, I believe the new addition to the historic home does not affect its appearance of mass or bulk and remains in harmony with Grayman Drive and its neighbors of Southland Park. This is the streetscape showing the relationship of the houses next door. Directly to the west, there's almost a carbon copy Spanish Mission 2-story, and then a couple houses to the east and a couple houses to the west. You have single-story homes. This is the condition of the existing house as it stands right now. Our real goal for this project was to rehabilitate this structure as it is. Don't make any changes to the front facade except for changing the windows and the front door. Even though the porch in the front was at some point in 1984, I believe, enclosed. It used to be an outdoor screen porch. We're going to keep the front facade as it is in whole. And what we're intending to do is just do an addition behind this facade to get a little bit more square footage and redesign the interior of the house, make it livable to today's standards. I'm just walking you around the house. This is still the front facade. This is the west facade, which we are keeping all the windows in their current locations on this facade as well. And the main structure all the way to the back corner remains as is as well. This is a a non-contributing carport storage structure that is in the rear of the property that we are requesting to be demolished. This is the rear of the house and the east side. The photo on the left would be the proportion, or the part of the facade that we're keeping as is, just replacing the windows and rehabilitating the structure. In the site plan, I can go through the numbers. I know Ben has shared with me some concerns that the numbers weren't matching up in terms of FAR. In the past, I've worked with bonuses that are granted to historic homes and neighborhoods. You get to either choose lot coverage or FAR, and in this case, we chose a bonus, if you would so grant it, of the 0.04 bonus in FAR that would make it from 0.5 to 0.54, and that would give us our Florida area ratio would be 3,429 square feet, and we're just under that at 3,415 square feet. And there was we got different numbers, so I'm curious to see if Ben still has, because I haven't spoken to him, if he still has a difference or that we're okay on the math. I believe we're okay, but I'm curious to see what he says. We're okay on lot coverage as well. The lot coverage allowed would be 1,905 square feet, and we're under that at 1,845 square feet. So in the site plan diagram, the shaded area is the new area that is behind the existing house that we're proposing. It's about 700 square feet. And then you have a covered, the X behind that is the covered terrace behind it. And also one thing, the lot itself, the home has an 8-foot setback on the west and a 5.5-foot setback on the east, and neither setback allow for a driveway. We had different ideas of putting a garage in the back, but the way that the site is laid out and the existing home doesn't allow for it. We have done, like our previous presenters have done, we've done a roundabout driveway with two 10-foot curb cuts that would satisfy the 2-car parking on-site requirement. This is an existing floor plan of the existing home and what we are proposing. The shaded area is the footprint of the existing home, and then you can see everything beyond it is what's new. We're keeping all of the structural walls of the main house of both stories in the shaded area, and only rehabilitating or refurbishing and adding structure where we need to. And then the new structure behind it would be that of a monolithic concrete footing and concrete block. The front facade, the top drawing is the existing, and what we are proposing is below. We spoke with staff, and our decision to change the windows from awning and Jalouse to single hung 1/1 light was kind of just talked about and agreed upon that would be the best choice in window for this style house. And that's what we have here. The only time we strayed from that was if we were doing a fixed window, or in terms of egress or egress requirements, we would change to a casement window if the single hung window wasn't big enough to meet the requirements of egress. It's an enlargement. The existing parapet roof is at 22 feet, which I believe is within the existing code requirements. We're just going to stay right at that level for the addition. And we are proposing to mimic or match the existing window detailing. The existing windows are wood window surrounds with a casing and a sill on the new structure. This is the east side elevation. This is an enlargement showing that there is a separation between the existing structure. We made a little outdoor balcony and a little recessed area to kind of separate it from the new. And then again, with the new structure, we've differentiated a little bit as well, adding the Spanish tile barrel parapet roof. This is the rear elevation. Showing again on the second floor, we have another balcony between the existing and the new structure. And we're adding the barrel tile roof elements for coverage from the rain. This is the side elevation. You can see above is the existing, and below we're just changing the windows, but we're keeping that facade intact. And then everything from the back is the new. It's in large detail showing the bay window in the master and the eyebrow roof over what is the screened terrace. There's just a couple photographs of the interior condition. You can see it's pretty worn. The photo on the right is where the old porch, that's the old concrete slab. They took the front door out where you see the wood parquet starting and moved it to the front. That's a wraparound balcony as well that was closed in. We are proposing to keep as much of the wood structure as we can. We do know, however, that there are elements of it that we're going to have to be replaced. And in this wood side of the structure, we are going to replace it in kind with wood beams, just to code the right size, the right rafters. This is the second floor balcony, which out of the entire house, this is probably the one that needs the most help. The picture on the left shows the roof joists, which are spaced, I think, more than 3 feet apart, and they're all bowing and sagging, creating a leak, and the water came in and ruined that. So our plan is to go in there and really retrofit that portion of the project. And make it strong enough to last, another 80 years. The picture on the left here shows one of the conditions of the house that I've never seen before. I've been doing projects in this neighborhood for a long time, and the stucco itself has been applied to this grooved batten board that is the sheathing of the house. It has some wire in there to keep it, but there's no water protection. There's no moisture barrier or anything. The only thing keeping out any moisture would be the paint, and stucco surface is cracked all around the house. So it's my recommendation to the owner that they replace the stucco in a similar style of the wash down textured stucco. It's just in large detail of the window surrounds. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Hold on. Say one thing.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So I bought this house from the guy who owned it since 1984. 84. There are currently some vagrancy problems and some windows that are covered up that he had covered up that are ongoing, and so that's why we chose the simplicity of keeping everything kind of in line and just kind of streamlining this so that we can stop the vagrancy and the penalties from accruing and getting this fixed for the neighbors that want it so badly.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Even though the board doesn't have purview over landscaping, does the landscape plan call for the removal of those twin palm trees in the front elevation that seem to be hiding the facade?
Is that a question for me or for staff?
Either one.
Okay, let me go
Whoever
back to
knows.
the pictures. This one right here?
Yeah.
I would relocate them or move them or whatever you recommend. That's not really in the way, right?
Yeah, it looks
That one's dead.
like a sable palm, maybe a double sable palm. So in our presentation, I maybe ran past it, but we are proposing to do a little forecourt
Oh, okay.
in front of
Yeah.
the house with a little balustrade and maybe a place to, have coffee or something in the morning, which is right where those trees are.
Right, yeah.
So if we needed to save them, if they were special, we could look into saving them.
Oh, I didn't, I just thought, I apologize, I didn't pick up on the fact that you established that terrace area. I just thought that they detracted from
Oh, sure.
the home.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, hi. Can you?
Oh, you have questions for us, or is it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Can you jump to the either the site plan or the floor plan? I don't know about the rest of my board members, but I don't have a lot of the material that you showed, including the site plan or a survey or renderings or.
I
So
apologize,
thank you for.
the rendering is new, but everything else was part of the packet, I believe, that I sent in.
I guess that didn't make our package. I don't know if there's quality control on staff's part. Unless you guys have the floor plans and the site plan?
No.
No. Okay. Can you just jump to the, great. So I think double curb cut on this block would be inappropriate, particularly with this size parcel. And then I think that your east elevation is currently vacant, abutting a vacant site. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I reading my
Yes,
analysis?
empty lot. Yeah, and Mr. Rennie owns that empty lot as well.
Super. It's good that you won't have a neighbor objecting. I think that the addition is successful at parts, and I think that it's unsuccessful in other parts. Particularly the stairwell element is very inappropriate for this style of architecture, and it almost lends itself to making the appearance of it to be a multi-family building. But I like the break that you did. I think it's very successful in the little outdoor terrace area. But I think the stairwell, I'm having problem with the double height stairwell and the protrusion. I guess you're seeking a encroachment as if it were a bay window because it's even set back closer. And then I think some of the size of the windows in the addition just changed too dramatically in scale from the existing. I think that there's an opportunity to be more playful with the height. I think you could probably go even higher with the addition, give yourself some more capacious living space for the modern lifestyle that you mentioned. And then I will trust staff that the window replacement for the existing is appropriate. But that's just my initial thought is, yeah, there's that along the east exterior elevation. I don't know if any of my colleagues agree, but that double height space, just the stairwell just seems just not appropriate.
I'll agree with that. I think that that's something that we often see in new construction, but not necessarily with contributing historic buildings. I also feel that this is there's very little ornamentation on the building, and some of the detailing to me is perhaps more reminiscent of a Mediterranean revival style, and in some sense it almost feels a bit too ornate. For instance, on the primary elevation with the little outdoor element you're creating, which I think is lovely, just like that balustrade detail, I think is a bit too ornate for the simplicity of the building. And so I would encourage you to look at some other precedents in the Mission Revival style. I think the pergolas are fine because it's not really an element that is a permanent change that could always be removed. But I think you have the same balustrade there on that east elevation. I think there's a few things that could be resolved, I think, on this elevation. And I'm not sure how I feel about the bay windows. I think maybe like the one on the second story, I think could work, but definitely not the full height one that's there for the stairwell now. And I'll agree. I mean, would you think it would be good to keep the same sill height, or in terms of connecting the fenestration and the contributing portion to the addition? Not necessarily. I can't tell if it is or not. Is it the same sill height?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. So it's more the height.
If I could jump in, I'm pretty sure that on the new structure, the head height of the windows is probably at 8 feet. That's kind of my standard, 8-foot high windows, 8-foot high doors. The original house, I'm sure it's lower. It's probably at 7 feet, 7.6 or something like that. So there is a differentiation there between the new and the old, but it's very easy if somebody, wants me to make them all the same, I can do that.
Okay.
And even the windows I changed to casement on the new versus the single hung on the old, and they can all be single hung if that's what the board, desires to.
Well, and I meant to preface my comments by, thanking you for taking on this project. I know it's one of many. I've been on this board long enough. I think I've overseen all of the projects that you've done.
Thank you so much.
And I think it's very successful. It's like almost there. I think there's just like very minor tweaks that need to be made, and we'll talk about it in executive session. But I think I really appreciate that you're keeping the front elevation the same and concentrating the addition to the back. And I think with just the minor changes, that I think it's on its way there. Yeah.
Speaking for 309 Grayman, I think it's beautiful.
That's the vacant lot next door.
Yeah, I mean, admittingly, these are interior elevations. I don't want to split hairs over it. I'll probably stand firm on the double height stairwell, though. But the height of those windows, I'm just nitpicking you, and maybe the architect will respond on that, and he probably or she knows that it also is just a little bit too off. But
we've had several renditions of what that looked like before we got to here, and we did have a plan with lots of arches, bringing arches and Mediterranean details and columns and twisted columns, and it kind of got really fussy, and we're just like, let's keep it simple. And I think what we forgot in the scale of the window was how dramatic the light is on the inside of the house, and that light pours into the main area was very attractive to me and to the owner, but it is completely oversized and doesn't need to be that big, and we can rearrange that several different times till we get it right. Save some money.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of examples. I don't know if it's mission style necessarily, but definitely Mediterranean. I'm contradicting myself and now pointing to Mediterranean references, but even a series of windows rather than one big one. I think that's a nice feature of historic properties that doesn't really carry through with a lot of new construction, that you can see that it's signaling to the viewer outside that it's a stairwell. So any further questions or comments?
At these bay windows, what's the material for the corbels underneath?
I believe it's going to be stucco painted.
And what's the depth underneath?
It's only 8 inches, so it's just going to be a little cove that is stuccoed. It could be wood, but I didn't want to add the wood there. It could be wood painted, but I think it's stucco.
Okay.
Or cast stone, painted.
I actually like the idea, now that you said cove, of just having that. I don't know if you need those. Anyway,
Oh, just a
sorry,
single-
now I'm also nitpicking, but yeah, you, like, to not even, and just have, like, curve the stucco up to it.
Yeah, I like that.
Very easy.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your time. Forgive me. Here we go. Benjamin Slaughter, City Historic Preservation Planner for case number 2367, 317 Greymount Drive, which is the Prospect Park, Southland Park District. The site consists of a two-story primary and one-story accessory structure. The primary was built in 1923 by A.B. Cobb, framed in mission style with a parapet roof. The carport is dated in 1984. The primary contributes to the district. The accessory structure does not. The character is defined by features of wood frame, stucco, facade, and enclosed sleeping porch. This is the site plan here. I'll go over any redundant ones quickly. There's a front shot of the front elevation showing the vacant lot next to it, and try to get perspective to the rear of the lot. This is a streetscape with the neighbors directly to the east and west. I'm sorry, some of these are redundant again, showing the house in a stabilized condition, but obviously fully demoed. And I took note of the stucco going through the wall, almost like an old school chinking in the 19th century. I thought that would be very interesting. The request was to replace the existing jealousy windows with a non-impact single hung window. Hardware including French doors, demolition of the non-contributing carport, and rehabilitation alterations to the existing structure, chimney, and second-story enclosure. Once again, the existing floor plan, which is shaded, the next with the full first and second story floor plans. The south elevation, which is the front. The sides, the west existing and new, and finally the rear. One of the exceptions that was written on this plan was for a green building standard. And I did a crash course in green building standards with West Palm Beach since I'm still pretty new. Chapter 94F5 gives a special exemption for it for green buildings. According to the master plan goals set in 2019 by the city of West Palm Beach through the U.S. Green Building Council, it lists the city of West Palm Beach as incorporated as a STAR community. Now, what is a STAR community? That is Energy Star, which is a new building standard if you're not familiar with. Florida is currently under version 3.1, which gives exceptions to a lot of new and improved mechanical systems, window systems, and door systems, which will allow the variance, because not so much as architecture, but discussing math a lot on this. This is a big house for this lot, and with a lot of exceptions and trying to make this fit and seeing where our numbers are, and that's been pretty much a point of conversation as much as the features on the building. This does fit, I believe, with 9 and 10, the Secretary of Interior's code for renovations. And the recommendations are approved with 2 conditions that resolve what we last discussion was 250 square feet of floor area ratio and meet the green building standards. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions of staff?
Ben?
Yes.
When we spoke earlier today, you mentioned that you had indicated approval on this, but then
Approval of conditions.
you wanted to
Yes.
change it to approval with
Yes,
conditions.
approval of conditions, yes.
So let's just briefly mention that, so it's on the record, and then maybe explain that to the board.
We approve of conditions until we recrunch the numbers, because some of the numbers on the elevations in the plan weren't just matching right. So we kind of went back and forth once again, I got some help from my colleagues, because I'm still pretty new with the city codes. and we're trying to come up with that number matching what we need for the house. So that's where we are right now.
But I just wanted the board to recognize that it says in your, in the staff materials, approval, it's actually, they're recommending approval with conditions.
Yes. My apologies.
Thank you. Melissa, but we don't have, the package doesn't include like a zoning code. Does this commission have, a zoning legend, excuse me, don't we have to authorize the bonus for the FAR?
Well, that's what I think that's what Ben is asking you to consider and
Yes.
discuss.
Yes, that's where we're not settled on the number yet.
And so I think that he wants you to deal with that issue. I mean, am I?
Yes. I'm not well versed to make determination if this house is within the FAR code yet, and that's my apologies. And I also apologize for the omission of the two documents in the packet.
You don't have to apologize.
Yeah, no need
First
to-
time,
yeah.
so.
I am your side on the other side of the waterway, so I know full well the responsibilities that staff has for getting these applications to us, and by no means is it a criticism on you.
No.
Trust me, I know.
I make mistakes every day, but I tell you not to make twice.
That said, if I and my colleagues have to grant a bonus, I would be more comfortable with having those numbers in the package at next month, and as well as seeing a revision to the design as directed by this, my colleagues, and I guess we can expand on that in the executive session.
Yes.
I agree. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session. So I agree. I think we definitely need some more information. There's only a rebuttal if there's public comment. Yeah. So, I mean, especially because thank you for drawing our attention to that. Especially because there's size, scale, and mass regulations, we also need to have those calculations. It's not just the bonus. So that is really important. So the site plan, the zoning calculations, and what else do you feel we need?
Well, the site plan that showed like the existing floor plan and then the new construction, so you could see what was what area was new versus the extent of the addition.
The actual floor plans
The
as
floor
well
plan,
for the first and second
yeah,
floor?
I mean, the zoning legend, the setbacks. I was not, we didn't have the survey showing the two curb cuts, which I think is not, I think I said, didn't I say that? I don't think that's proper on this size parcel, the width. The streetscape?
You're asking them to come back with more information.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to the 1 month to the January 23rd, 2024 meeting would be appropriate if the applicant can get that documentation by then.
Yes, sir. It's all, it's in the packet. Some of it's there that you don't have, but we'll be happy to send it again.
Okay. And can you do some of the design refinements that we've gave direction about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Would it be possible to approve it with the condition that we meet the FAR? Because I'm pretty sure it's just.
Why don't you go ahead and come up to so you're speaking. I'm sorry, guys, if he's going to
No,
speak, we
it's
need to have
okay.
it on record.
I apologize. I had all those tables in there, so I didn't think this was going to come up. And I know Ben and I have been going through this the last couple days, but I'm pretty confident that the numbers for FAR are correct. I just have to get on the same page as Ben, and I will fully adjust whatever I need to do to make sure we meet the code, especially if you don't grant us the .04, bonus, which I think is 140 square feet more than what is allowed. But if in time, is the essence with the owner and the fact that the building, has been, is it being penalized per day because of the vagrancy problem from the previous owner before he took, that if you could find a way to approve it with the condition that we meet that FAR, I would really appreciate it, but it's up to you.
And one last thing, Mr. Murphy, the double curb cut for the driveway addresses a small problem where the site plan has a, what is it called? A shared driveway right now, and that would alleviate the problem that the neighbor has. That's why we did this. We spoke to her, and she would it would not be her parking on my side or me parking on her side or anything like that. It would fix that problem and give her actually her space back. So that's the only reason why we did it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like we need legal advice on this. I mean, I feel like FAR is not something we approve conditionally. At least I don't remember, like FAR calculations.
I think if you guys need more information and you want to hear it again, you should continue it and consider it next month. Is that?
I'm certainly amenable to approving it now if there's conditions that we have to, that Benjamin is going to give us to read into the record, but I don't know how we approve with conditions when we don't know what the conditions are. I'm sorry, but Melissa, if you feel that we can approve it with the bonus that
I might be missing something. Do you have the information that you need to make a decision today, do you feel? At the board? I mean, if you don't, then you should continue it. Because, Ben, are there conditions that you can set forth that they're, because they don't feel comfortable approving, what I'm hearing is the board needs more information from staff. Is that correct?
Or from the applicant. I mean, it's from the applicant. But
it's not in front of you, I think.
It's not in our packet.
Right, and so.
Some of it was in the presentation, but we haven't had a chance. We haven't had a chance to really review.
I think honestly, it probably needs to be fleshed out more on the staff level with some consideration given. And I think at this point, it might be premature for the board to make a decision until staff has had an opportunity to verify whatever information is uncertain between staff and the applicant. That's what my take on the situation is.
Is there a way to give kind of the best of both worlds? We can approve it and they come back next month?
I think you can conditionally approve it, but I'm not sure, and there must be some sort of code enforcement action you guys are being subjected to. I'm not sure that some sort of conditional approval from this board is going to help you on that anyway. But I think...
That's tracking the permit. I do have a diagram that I did of the FAR since my conversation with Ben that shows what the numbers are. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm certainly not going to tell the board what to do. It seems to me that there are details that need to be, staff needs to be more sure about. That there's not, I mean, am I correct in that there's some uncertainty in the application?
Yeah, we're going back and forth about 3 o'clock today. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going back and forth about 3 o'clock today.
So I think that there needs to be a certainty about that, and then it needs to come back to the board. You can conditionally approve it, but you're just going to be hearing it again, and I would rather wait until all the information is in front of the board. Staff is very sure about what they're presenting, what the conditions are, and then you guys can move forward on that basis. But I don't know what you'd be conditionally approving because staff's not sure what the numbers are, so.
I do believe that Ben had on his approval with conditions, the 254 square feet of FAR needed to be approved or confirmed.
We just need to resolve that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's something that if the board conditionally approves it, is that something that staff is okay with?
I'm okay with it, yes.
You feel comfortable that it's... Yes, okay, all right. I'm sorry, I'm trying to...
Yeah.
If staff feels comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable with that. Because I'm not the person who makes the factual,
Chair, if I may, Rick Green, Development Services Director. It's very common in all the other boards we work with, Planning Board, Downtown Action Committee, that if there are issues that can be resolved with staff, if the board feels comfortable relegating that authority to staff to work with the applicant to try to resolve it, particularly if it's a minor issue. That happens all the time with the other boards, so we're comfortable
Sure,
doing that.
and this board does that too. I just wasn't sure.
Melissa, was
I
that
think
gentleman sworn in?
Mr. Green, I think, was sworn in. Were you sworn in, Mr. Green?
You were, okay.
Yes, then, yes, if you guys want to conditionally approve it and there's enough information in the packet or that you've been presented that you feel comfortable with that, please go ahead.
Well, I think there are two issues. It sounds like staff hasn't had enough time to fully discuss, I guess, or it was a very last-minute conversation, and that we don't have basic information that we have with every application in our packet, which I think is what you were drawing attention to. But also understanding the situation that you're in with what you inherited from the previous property owner. If everybody can be okay with it, I guess I can be okay with it too. But in the future, when you do come back, please make sure all this information, because I'm sure you're going to do more projects, is in the packet.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
We'll resolve it.
Thank you.
Thank
So we are in executive session. Yes, we did public comment.
So what would be the wording of the condition then?
Well, we have the two conditions by staff. We want to, I don't know if everyone wants to, but I think we would like to address the stairwell.
What are the two conditions by staff?
One was the 254. I don't think that's in our packet. Can you put that up on the screen? The two conditions that you had? I think it was like 254 square feet, and there was one other condition.
I didn't see that.
Resolve 250 square feet of overflow floor area ratio and must meet the building, green building standards.
Okay. So I think
Okay.
we could add about
I can make a motion.
the stairwell. I don't know if you feel the same way about the ornamentation, but.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I'll try this. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 23-67 for additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10 set forth in section 9449 of the city zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff memo, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan in the City of West Palm Beach, and the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, set forth in the additional compatibility criteria set forth in 9449 of the city's land development regulations, which states, the conditions include the following, that the proposed addition shall comply with all underlying zoning regulations, and that the additional 254 square feet of overage on floor area ratio shall be resolved by staff, The project shall meet the green building standards, granting the overage of the increase of the underlying zoning regulations. The overall ornamentation of the proposed new addition shall be simplified, subject to the review and approval of staff. And the applicant shall revise the two-story stairwell portion of the east elevation to be more appropriately designed, subject to the review and approval of staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project approved. You're welcome. Our next case is case number 23-69, 714 New York Street.
Good evening. My name is William Cross, and just so everybody knows, I am very hard of hearing. I have a great deal of difficulty in these chambers, so if you do have any questions, be patient with me. So,
I hear you, brother.
Let's see. You have 714 New York Street, change of roofing material. First, want to kind of throw out that I am a certified planner, been practicing here in Palm Beach County for 30 years, 1 month shy of 30 years, and I've lived in this house for 20 years. I want to thank staff and Benjamin, Dodie Glass, and Rick. I came forth to attempt the change of materials through the administrative process and was told that that has changed, and that's why I'm before you today. I want to say they've been very responsive, they've been very helpful, they've answered the phones, and they've got me on this agenda very quickly. So with that said, overview, background, and request. Historic preservation requirements I want to go through some previously approved metal roofs, both by staff and by this board. Other considerations I'd like you to be considering when you think about these topics, and then how I'm going to comply with all the standards that are required through the ordinance, the county and the city's policies, as well as the Department of Interior's guidelines. So real quickly, I got this house in 2003. You can see that we immediately, within about a month, removed all the awnings off the property. We had a roof on it within a month. We started to clear the property out. I won't say the interior was as bad as what I just saw in the previous presentation, but it was significantly deteriorated. The bathroom and the kitchen were not salvageable, but we were able to replaster almost all the walls in the home, save the floors, and almost all the historic features that were remaining, with the exception to the kitchen and the bathroom on the inside. So this is the garage to give you an idea of what some of the roof conditions were like on the main structure. Luckily, there was no termite damage. It's got good bones, but the main house had similar damage along the back, and you can see that the roof is actually gone in many places on this structure. So this is about within a year we had everything fixed up on that. This is the back of that structure, just again, to give you an idea with kind of the things that we were dealing with 20 years ago, and that's all been gutted and gone and brought back to original. Over the years, you can see we had nice landscaping. 2016, we have less landscaping because we have, by 2023, I've got 2 little ones, and I don't have time to keep up with everything. So a couple of Google Street Views you can see to get an idea of some of the recesses and projections on the structure. The front is recessed on the living room side, and there are several recesses and projections on the east elevation. The west elevation is pretty much straight, as is the south. And you can see that pretty much I've got a dormer roof on the top, and all of the outriggers, with the exception of 2, are intact. There's an arch feature. It is a rough stucco, but it's not a troweled on stucco. It's almost like a blown on stucco, for lack of a better description. I think you all may know better than I. Don't want to share the inside of my house, but just to give you an idea of how much work we put into it, you can see we've stripped all of the paint, several layers of paint, including the dental shelf on the fireplace, down to bare wood, restained, salvaged as much as we could, kept it going. So I'm here asking for 5B crimp. So looking at Mr. Pickney, I've only watched one historic video, and I heard him quote, "Owners come and go, but the roof stays." And I'd like you to reconsider how that quote stated, and that is, owners may come and go, but incorporating resiliency and sustainability into historic preservation will help to ensure that homes are preserved for future generations. I know you already consider that, but I kind of want to give that a little extra edge with this particular request. My confusion stems from having seen the city's web pages, all of my neighbors having these roofs, speaking with multiple neighbors, committing to finally doing it, saving the money, and then finding out that I can't do it. And insurance, for the record, is due in March for renewal. I do think we'll get it this year, but it is a bit stressful, as you all know. So again, more data. I understand that in the design guidelines book, that the certificate of appropriateness approval matrix is just the guideline. Here's the city's current one. It still shows change in material is an administrative approval. I understand the ordinance does say that they can defer to the Historic Preservation Board in 15 days if they don't feel like approving it. So other things from the webpage, some points to keep in mind is that generally historic property should appear as originally designed, and that the original occupants were to return, they would recognize the building. This request wouldn't alter that. They would still recognize the structure because all of the key elements like the outriggers, the front arch, the stucco, the recesses and projections, the front facade, all the key elements are being retained. No change to roof pitch, gable, nothing. Additions and alterations is not going to change the shape and layout, and it's obviously not going to change something that's not in the neighborhood. So this was my first stab at kind of looking at Grandview Heights. The red checks that you can barely see represent all the homes that currently have metal roofs, predominantly 5B crimp with a few others having standing seam. This is taken from the city's webpage for this neighborhood. You can see that there's new construction, Park Slope we all recognize, and then you've got a couple of those new ones that were used as examples in the second application today. You actually have some that were moved here. My good friend moved that house from Flagler Avenue on a barge. And then you've got a few, like the most prominent one was not shown. It's actually historic, and it's the folks that did the Heisler subdivision, as well as this one, which won the 2018 Historic Preservation Award. The fuchsia check marks just quickly show you how many homes in this neighborhood already have metal roofs. So out of 249 lots, which if you take the ones that are condoed out or shared lots or unity of control, you've got 239 lots, 402 total structures, 294 contributing, 108 that are non-contributing or new construction. Here's the map if you want to see it a little bit more closer. But what I want to say is that 16% of the total structures, and this is just me doing a real quick and dirty rough look, 16% of the total structures have metal roofs. If you take out all the flat roofs with the parapets, shed roofs, or other roofing types on structures, 26% of all structures that would have shingles or metal roof or other similar have metal roofs. You take it down to just the historic contributing structures, then you got 17% and 26%, so it's pretty consistent. So looking at the Historic Preservation Design Guidelines, page 46 and 47, this was done in 2005, as you know. One of the buildings used one of the homes used to show you what a bungalow looks like has 5B crimp. So 5B crimp galvanized mill finish, as I'm requesting. And the house that was built next to it just a few years back, significantly larger, 5B crimp. It does have the appearance, as I'm sure was by condition of approval, of hardy board or siding on the front, but a majority of the front is stucco, and all other three sides are just plain finished stucco. So having been told that the issue is with stucco, I've kind of focused a little bit on that to give examples. So right across the street, you've got 1207 Florida, originally a shingle roof structure. You recently reviewed this for an addition. The addition is entirely stucco with 5B crimp, as well as the main structure now. This is a good friend of mine. They won the 2018 award for historic preservation. This is a complete gut job and a wonderful rebuild. They've done 5B crimp, and it's a beautiful, beautiful renovation. 1619, 1621 O Street. As you can see, same thing. The front facade of 1621 is predominantly, if not 90% stucco. I will admit the side facades in the rear does have wood paneling, and you can see a little bit of that cedar shake up there on the top of this roof pitch. So this is a new construction as well, 630 O Street, 5B metal crimp. You can see all three, as well as this two-story four square has 5B. And this is predominantly stucco. You got 617 P Street, it's contributing structure as well. This has the cedar shake sides. It is now 5V crimp. You can see it here, and with the landscaping and color change. You start to see, I'm just going to pull some of the permits to show you. These have all been reviewed by historical within the last 5 or 6 years. Some are as 10, 15 years ago, but it's very clear. Change from asphalt shingle to 5V meets design guidelines for historic districts. So right across the street, this is the Grantham's properties. They own all 3 of these, amongst others. And you'll see in the center is 612 P Street. That's a dormer shed roof, similar to my structure. It also happens to be completely stucco, and it has 5V metal crimp on it. Also reviewed by historic. Then you've got the properties at 1506 and 1508. These are older conversions back, I think, around 2006, 2007. But it also, as you see here on the right-hand side, the south structure, which is 1508 Georgia, is a stucco bungalow with 5V metal crimp. And then I've got here 1605 and 1609 Georgia, as well as 711 Penn. These 2 are 5V metal crimp. 1601 recently came in and has been approved and built out with standing seam. It's a little bit fancier house than mine. Again, historical review. Grandview Heights, this is just down the street from me on 733 New York Street. You can see it was originally a shingle structure, and it's now 5V metal crimp. You may recollect this was before you recently for an addition. Not only that, but it's the Harvey residence identified in the design guidelines. So it's a prominent structure. It has a shed dormer of much steeper pitch, but it has been approved and converted as of 2015 to 5V metal crimp. And it's predominantly stucco on the front and the side facades with wood paneling on the upper level. When it came in, it got the addition that's predominantly stucco as well, and the 5V metal crimp was allowed to go over. My recollection is that the discussion on this structure focused on staff recommendation, which I agreed with, to bring the addition down into a comparable size with the main original contributing structure. Did a great job. The contractor's excellent. The owners are excellent. They're doing a beautiful, beautiful job on this property. It's got predominantly stucco facades, 5V metal crimp. And it has been stated as meeting Secretary of Interior standards for historic rehabilitation as well as additions. Right across the street, 726, 730, and 734 New York Street, shingle to 5V metal crimp. The 734 one is so new that I don't even have a picture in the aerial. Here's a picture from a few days ago, 5V metal crimp. All reviewed by historic. Then this was just done on Park, beautiful renovation. My family, actually, extended family, just rented this structure for Thanksgiving so that my older son could come down from Raleigh, and we had our Thanksgiving in this house. It's absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to jump over to Flamingo Park. Just here's 5V metal crimp. Here is one that was new construction. It's a pretty well-known structure. The owner originally designed it for a good reason, and he passed away before it was completed. His wife still lives there. It's 5V metal crimp. We go over to Mango Promenade. Several structures there are 5V metal crimp. Then 2 that are more similar to mine, except I would say not as humble but far larger, are in Prospect Park, 303 and 305 Westminster. These are 5V metal crimp. They're both stucco bungalows. One, as you can see here, was shingle. I couldn't go past 2006 to see if the other one was, at what point. You can see the stucco facades, similar elements to my home, with the archway over the front porch, 5V metal crimp. And you can see off to the side it has the gable, just like my home has as well. So all reviewed through historical as recently as 2015 and signed off on. Then we go to Central Park. I actually spoke to the owner, great guy. In 2015, he actually came before this board and asked for the conversion similar to what I'm asking for. And his presentation was very similar to mine. He said he used a lot of examples to show that folks had the metal roofs already, and he gave a little bit more detail as well. It's a stucco bungalow, 5V metal crimp from shingle to stucco, 5V metal crimp. So that did come before Historic Preservation Board, as a few others that I didn't mention earlier. Other considerations I'd like you all to kind of think about is, resiliency. We well know the wind load ratings, the reflectivity, and the passive solar heat emission that we get out of a 5V metal crimp or other metal roofing materials. It's going to give me a longer lifespan. I've been here 20 years. I got to replace the roof. I've got the 5-year extension on multiple inspections that the insurance company's done. That's going to run out. And each year at renewal, after that 15-year period, you may or may not be reviewed, regardless of whether or not you got 5 years of remaining life left. It's just kind of rolling the dice each year. It's a little bit stressful. I've saved my money to do this, and I really feel strongly that this is the way to go. The product that I am selecting, I want to point out, it's got the Cool Roof Rating Council ratings on it. It is a little bit better than the shingles, and it's a heck of a lot lighter on my structure. So I just kind of showed you that it's got its product approval for the CRRC. Other considerations, West Palm Beach's Sustainability Action Plan. I understand this has been renewed. This is from the old one. It's sustainable buildings and housing. It does recognize that modern technologies and weatherization procedures allow for significant improvements to buildings without compromising the historic value of the structure. And I'm going to say that under their goals, it's really keep the historic fabric of buildings and structures intact. I think that the examples I've previously cited aren't staff errors. They're very well intentioned, very well thought out, and very well approved, and I do think they recognize that this is a benefit. Other considerations, I've got way more information I couldn't jam in here, and I can assure you if my wife had had time to edit it, half of this wouldn't be here. But one good example is the city of Lakeland. Several years ago, they explicitly identified metal 5V crimp as a reasonable material to replace shingles with on bungalows, and I'm just citing their policy. I'm citing that they say 5V crimp is replace shingle roofing for certain architectural styles, bungalow roofs, shingles or metal panels, and then that the craftsman bungalows are appropriate styles of housing in Lakeland that are compatible with metal roofing material. Now, I've grown up on the West Coast. I'm very partial to 5V metal crimp. It's everywhere. But I will say I've been over here 30 years, and to me, it's natural. Other consideration, Florida homeowners insurance crisis. I've kind of mentioned that. This is the standards that Senate Bill 2 that was adopted in 2022 requires all insurance companies to follow for renewals after 15 years. And it very clearly identifies that 50 years for tile, slate, concrete, or metal roofs, they're going to have more lenient review standards for these types of metal roofs as opposed to shingles. So Historic Preservation Ordinance, I feel like it complies with all of the standards of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, statement of purpose, decisions, as well as Secretary of Interior standards. All of the additional criteria, the key ones, design styles, does not alter. Elements should relate to the surrounding buildings. The proposed roofing does relate to the surrounding buildings as by the testimony and the evidence I provided before. Another key one is relationship of materials and textures should be chosen with the predominant materials of the historic district in mind. Don't alter anything else, no roof shapes, no other changes, keeping the fireplace, keeping everything. Historic Preservation Ordinance complies with reviews of roof repairs and changes. I appreciate that staff did specifically quote that wood shingles are stated in the design guidebook as an appropriate roofing material for bungalows. It doesn't say it's the only roofing material for bungalows. And then it's best to retain. I want to highlight that. The standards that are being referred to says is best to retain. It doesn't say shall retain, must retain. It says is best to. Secretary of Interior standards complies actually with all 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 9. Those are the key ones for material and detail. Doesn't make the building look older. And the elements adduced are appropriate for the property. Doesn't change the character. Secretary of Interior standards, I want to point out that standard 4, most properties change over time. Now, I know that was contemplated to be something maybe 20 or 30 years after it was first built, but history is still occurring. And as I showed you a picture of my children, they're going to inherit this property, and it's going to be the South Florida home. We have a house up north, but they're going to inherit it. And these things are going to become historic in their own right, I think, as evidenced by the percentages of metal roofs in the neighborhood already. So 714 York Street is an appropriate change for the request. City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Ordinance, it meets the adopted policies. It's consistent with board approvals for allowing 5V crimp as well as staff approvals on stucco bungalows, much less numerous other types of bungalows. and it meets the Secretary of Interior standards. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the very thorough presentation.
I'm sorry?
I said thank you for the very thorough presentation.
Again, it would have been edited, there just wasn't time.
I understand. Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-69 for alterations at 714 New York Street. As you just heard, the property is in the Grandview Heights Historic District, and it is on New York Street. The request is to replace the current asphalt shingle roof with a metal roof in a 5V crimp and a galvanized mill finish. The applicant has done a great job of outlining their request, really awesome examples of other structures. However, just a few outlining points on why we as staff are not able to approve this, at least administratively, and are recommending denial. In the past, you have seen certainly a number of permits where we have approved a change from a shingle roof to a metal roof. However, most of those changes are just that, a change. They're not the original roofing material on those structures. So more recently, particularly in the last 6 months, I believe as, a result of several board discussions I think many of you were here for, me and Ms. Mittner, who was formerly in department, sat down and kind of decided that we would be a little bit tighter on our regulations than we had been before for approving metal roofs at an administrative level. Obviously, always with the option of bringing them to you as the board. And really the defining feature that we landed on as, approval would be horizontal siding and one-story structures. Most of what you saw there, I would say, had horizontal siding. Very little of it did not have, had stucco. And we kind of came to the conclusion that for stucco homes, it wasn't as appropriate of a replacement material as it would be on a home with, say, horizontal siding, maybe more of a Key West style home. As you heard, the design guidelines do state that deteriorated roofing materials should be replaced when necessary with new materials that should match the original in composition, size, shape, and texture. A metal roofing panel does not match in any of these categories. And this is actually an example from the disaster mitigation strategies for Florida. Unless the previous existence of a metal roof on the building can be demonstrated, either through investigation of physical evidence, through analysis of historical documentation, such as photographs, the use of metal panel roofs would be inappropriate for replacement material. In this case, we do have the green card from 1962. It does indicate a shingle roof material, which, although obviously still speculation, it could have been replaced prior to that, probably means that was the original roofing material. The homeowner has brought up concerns certainly about insurance. That is something that the planning division recognizes the difficulty that homeowners are facing. I think it's something that, this is a Wall Street Journal article about insurance in Flamingo Park. I think it's something that people in all of our historic districts in all types of homes are facing, regardless of roofing materials, certainly. So unfortunately, we don't believe that it meets standards 6 and 9, particularly standards 9 in terms of, historic materials and keeping original historic materials. So we are recommending denial of the application as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment? Yes, sir.
Come up here real quick.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
My name's Jacob Scharf. I live at 214 Lakeland. I've lived in Palm Beach County my whole life. Been a homeowner since 2008 at 214 Lakeland. I don't know this gentleman. I just wanted to give my 2 cents if possible. Just a couple practical reasons. Number 6 and number 9. Number 6 says replace with what used to be there. I know these super old historic homes, you could argue that some of them, before shingles were even available, some of them may have had metal roofs years and years ago. I know we can't prove that, but that would be one reason to allow it. Obviously, property values go up with that change. I don't think that's debatable. It wouldn't go down, so that's great for the area as well. Safety, hurricanes is practical down here. When the hurricane came through Tampa, most of the homes that still had roofs when the homes were gone were all metal roofs. So here in South Florida, I wouldn't understand why someone who owns their house, doesn't rent, wouldn't be allowed to put a metal roof on it, because it is safer, obviously, as a family. So that would be another benefit. And lastly, and I just can't wrap my head around it, I live at 214 Lakeland, just north of Southern, and just riding a bike around that I have, just taking pictures of homes that have metal roof, and I got about 12 pictures of different homes with metal roofs. None of them are the wood slats. They're all stucco homes. They all look great. They all look awesome. Some of them are on olive, so they have street view. Somewhere along the line, they were all allowed to do that to their homes. They look, you could argue, very comparable to his home. So I don't understand why he wouldn't be allowed to do that. And one in particular, 310 Graymont Road, it's awesome. It looks great. It's just getting done. They just put a metal roof on it. 310 Graymont, I don't know if that, I don't know. It just seems, I don't know if you guys want to see these, but they're all stucco homes. They all look great, and they all have metal roofs. So I'm just a homeowner in the area. I do not know this gentleman, but I think it would be great to allow, I mean, he did way more research than I did, but it just seems very logical to allow it, especially given the fact that there's so many other homes that, that have metal roofs, that it's debatable. They look great, and they have stucco, and they at some point were allowed to have it. So to, in the last X amount of months, change that rule just doesn't really make sense. You know, you own your home, and if it complements the area, it's safer and raises the values, it's almost a no-brainer to me. So stucco versus wood seems very trivial. So that's it. Just want to voice my opinion. Thank you all.
Thank
Or should I
you.
leave this?
Yes, you can leave that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to respond to anything? I imagine you don't need to. It was in support, but I just wanted to let you know that you do have an opportunity to speak if you want to.
I think the testimony, the evidence presented is pretty helpful for your discussion. I want to point out of all those metal roofs that I cited in Grandview Heights alone, to my recollection, only 2 were originally metal shingle, and they have both since been replaced. Actually, one is directly southwest of me. It's a 2-story, 4-square with an accessory building behind it, and it's been replaced with 5E metal crimp. And then one's actually 3 doors up on Georgia, just north of me, and it was metal shingle, and it's been replaced with 5E crimp. So I just think that the other thing I want you to consider is folks are putting way too much landscaping in front of our homes these days. And you can kind of look back 15, 20 years, and you can really see the structures. And we're going to get a hurricane, then it'll probably clean that out. But I want to point out to you that you're really not seeing the roof as much as you may think you do. I do appreciate that it's an important facet of historical preservation, but folks aren't just looking at the roof. They're looking at the key elements. They're looking at the gables. They're looking at the outriggers. They're looking at the arches, the material, and the stucco that they're seeing on the front facade. They're going to look at the dormer. And I just don't feel as that we're really pushing, heaven forbid if you guys, I don't know to tell the story and ramble on, but I bought this house with 2 concrete strips because my grandparents had a cottage very similar up north. And I wanted that concrete strips, and so help me, I'd love to have a brick driveway, and I cannot bring myself to change that material. That's not stopping any of my other neighbors. Everybody wants that brick driveway. I have retained a key historical element that's really not regulated by you all, I don't believe. So I would say kind of be sympathetic that, you know, some of us are trying to do the best we can, but it's just, this is something that's really important, I feel strongly about, and I hope you consider my opinions.
Thank you. We'll now go into executive session.
I don't know, in the in the written portion of staff's discussion, they mentioned financial considerations. So right off the bat, financial considerations of applicants are not within our purview, just strictly the historic regulations. And then secondly, over the months, I think we've come to be a little bit cynical about some things. And I wondered whether in all these examples that the gentleman presented, how many of those people were approved for one thing, yet put a different roof on, or did not simply put whatever they want without coming before us or any other board. So I'm a little bit cynical here. Other than to say, like this, I think it's a situation we had last month where they denied and they went before the city council and got it overturned. I'd rather stick to our guns and deny something than set a precedent for things that we don't believe in.
I want to say my recollection of the last time that we had a proposal like this that precipitated that change in policy, I thought it was a different architectural style. Anne, can you confirm that? I thought it was like a mid-century house, like Northwood area.
So there were a couple. There was a mid-century house with a concrete tile roof, and then there was also a little bit earlier, 1920s, Foursquare, also Old Northwood, that requested, I believe, a dark metal roof.
And that was like a mission style or a
I don't believe we had a mission
Mediterranean.
style
I can't
one.
remember. It was Mediterranean. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there was one right near where I live on North Flagler, and he wanted one thing and whatever.
Well, I never want to be in opposition to staff, but I do think that's an important distinction is the architectural style, and certainly the presentation given was very comprehensive and I think convincing on many levels. I mean, I would say of all the historic districts, a metal roof is most appropriate in Grandview Heights just because of the precedent that's set. Not that we recognize precedent, everything's done on a case-by-case basis, but I do think that that neighborhood itself lends itself well in terms of the concentration of architectural styles. And I mean, I understand there's a difference in the material, that it's stucco instead of wood, but I don't know. I think I'm open to it. I don't know how everybody else feels.
What I'm curious to see is the reason for the denial regarding the home having wood versus the stucco. If you look at the photo of the property, and this is, we don't know, could it have been perhaps built with wood, the wood siding on it? 'Cause if you look at the top, you will see the wood on there, and this is just us speculating. So perhaps at some point down the line, did it get covered with a stucco 50 years ago, 60 years ago? And if that's the case, then we would be having a different conversation of an approval. So I just wanted to see, is that possible, and what does my fellow panel say up here?
I think it's definitely a possibility because I would imagine someone might have thought it would be less maintenance to do stucco instead of wood. Does anyone else want to weigh in?
So I think that when you have a municipality that has a strong design review and a design guideline, that the hierarchy in place is appropriate in that you have permits, you have a staff level with a professional historic preservation staff, and then you have this commission that hears each application individually based on the merit and its location in a district. I do not support the denial by staff. I feel that a vernacular or a bungalow style of architecture as the subject property, the galvanized mill finish metal, crimped metal roof is appropriate, and I would be supportive of the application as presented.
Okay. Any further thoughts?
I'm supportive of it as well.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
Okay, I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number 23-63 for alterations in accordance with standards 9 as set forth in section 94-49 of the city zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted, I guess, and not the staff memo, which constitute, do I include the staff memo? No. No. So the motion is based on the testimony presented by the applicant along with the application submitted, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, aye, okay, motion carries, approved. You're welcome. With that, I believe that brings us to the end of the agenda for the evening. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And meeting adjourned.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you.